we got 30 seconds.
Whoa, just under the wire.
Just a bit outside.
Test. Testies, 1, 2. Oh.
I hope you have two.
Some don't.
Some don't.
Like geckos, as it turns
Well, specifically my gecko.
out. How's he? Is he still alive?
He's doing great.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Last I saw him.
All right.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with our outstanding producer and engineer, Mr. Aaron Zommers, on the board. It is 6 past the hour of 12 noon on this Monday, January 27th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Welcome in, everybody, to the start of the work week. Back to school. Glad to have you along. Some partly sunny skies, at least here in the capital city, downtown Madison, State Street, a block off the Capitol Square. Glad to have you along, Mr. Zommers. How the heck was your weekend?
It was great. One of my friends from Manitowoc moved to New York a few years ago, and he got engaged. He's getting married. We found out at the beginning of this last week that, oh, hey, he's going to be in town. So we had an impromptu bachelor party, which just consisted of a bar crawl on Brady Street in Milwaukee.
Now, you and Luke Mathers, we discussed this a little bit earlier when we got in, and you enlightened me. Our listeners on WAUK Milwaukee, Waukesha area probably know this, but you told me about a specific Walgreens. This is news to me. I thought all Walgreens were pretty much equal, but explain.
The Walgreens on Brady Street is a bit of a twilight zone, as Luke put it, and I agree. Dan Schaefer's also posted about it.
Has he really? All right.
On Twitter, X, whatever, on his Recombobulation area stuff.
The decor, what they sell, what makes
people.
What?
It's just
really,
yeah, weird things happen in and around it, and it's a bit unexplainable.
Is it part of what makes Wisconsin great?
Yeah, it's part of what makes Wisconsin great.
I think we may have to do a show live from the Walgreens on Brady Street.
That would be interesting.
Well, we'll check it out. Well, I'm glad you had a good weekend. I kind of took it easy, turned off the devices on Friday,
Nice.
took a little break from electronics. Boy, did that feel good. Just kind of chilled out. Looked out to the frozen lake a little bit. Went to Bar Corallini for a dinner on Friday night. Ever been there in Atwood neighborhood?
I've never heard of it.
Fantastic, authentic Italian.
Ooh.
Maybe not as Italian as Dominic Selvia. He's very Italian, but it's a great place. And then I had a choice, work on some things for the show, which I did a little bit of, obviously. And speaking of the tours around Wisconsin, the What Makes Wisconsin Great show, I would come back from one of these week-long trips, and I'd have boxes and things like that and papers, and I'd just throw them in the corner of my apartment, and I'd go work, and I'd take another one and throw it in another corner. So it looked like a warehouse. And so now, after the weekend, it looks like actually a domicile where somebody might be able to live. So it was a lot of sorting, and yes, throw it away. So, and also watched a little bit of sports while I was doing it. Wisconsin Badgers trounced Nebraska, as our great sports reporter, Mr. Mike Clemens, has been reporting on all day. What a weekend for the Wisconsin Badgers. Of course, former Badger Connor Esijan, who went in the transfer portal and went to Nebraska over the offseason. He was back in the Kohl Center for the first time since leaving. And you know what? It was really, really classy on both his part and Wisconsin coach Greg Gard. When Esijan was introduced at the start of the game, he and Gard actually walked over towards him, and they met at center court and shook hands.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and
that needs to happen more often.
Absolutely. And afterwards, Gard and Esijan gave each other a big hug, talked for a minute, and all of the teammates that Esijan had played with at Wisconsin, they all had their secret little handshakes, and they did that as they went through the line. And it appeared everything was very respectful, nothing but love on both sides, and you like to see it.
You'll love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't see that, but I did watch the NFL games, and unfortunately, we have another Super Bowl I do not care about.
Just to make it follow up quickly on that basketball game, number 18 Wisconsin 83, Nebraska 55. Wasn't even
Wow.
close. Yeah, the Badgers really trounced Nebraska. By the way, the men's basketball team is back in action on Hump Day. This coming Wednesday, they will travel to Maryland. Broadcast time for the pregame show at 5 p.m. right here across the Civic Media Network in Amory, Racine, Kenosha, Wisconsin Rapids, and Richland Center. You can also listen to that game for free on the Civic Media app via one of those stations. So Wisconsin, Maryland, this Wednesday at 5 p.m. Looking forward to that. And as you said, football as well. Yes, it will be a repeat of the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The Kansas City Chiefs. What a game, though. That was the best game in a long time. The Chiefs over the Bills. Bills fought valiantly. Some people a little salty about some of the officiating, maybe kind of bending towards the Chiefs a little bit. But, the Chiefs, some of the game planning by Coach Andy Reid, just some phenomenal calls. Patrick Mahomes, what can you say about that guy? But boy, the Bills played great. And then the first game, the Eagles versus the Commanders, that was a trouncing.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, and God bless and congratulations to Washington. They have a freshman quarterback. Haven't been to the post or been that far in a long, long time. They had a great season, but you could tell that the Commanders were just a little nervous, maybe. Several, 3 or 4 turnovers in that game for the Commanders. But hey, I think they have a bright future. But it'll be the Chiefs and the Eagles in 2 weeks on, I believe, Fox has the Super Bowl this year.
I believe so, yes.
Speaking of, I sent you a cut, by the way. Did you get that? I did not know it was to the day, 1997. This date in history, as Pat Kreitlow on Up North News would say, this date in history, 97 or 96? 97. When it was 96 team, 97 playoffs, the Super Bowl in New Orleans, where, of course, the Super Bowl is going to be played this year. Here it is. This will bring back memories for a lot of us. 1997 on this date, the 27th of January, 1997, and is called by the great late Pat Summerall and the great late John Madden. And they had left CBS. They were now on Fox, who had the Super Bowl that year. The Packers versus the Patriots on the first play of the Super Bowl.
Bennett, the lone setback. 2 tight ends set up for the Packers, and Favre back to throw his first one. Going deep, has a man open. Andre Rison does the dance in, and Favre got settled down in a hurry.
That is the way to settle down. Sometimes they think you have to start with short passes. I always said when you got a strong arm guy and you want to settle him down and he's anxious, just show it, throw a deep one. That's exactly what they did. Here's Andre Rison. He's in the slot. He's going to come up against Otis Smith there. He just makes a good, quick move to the post, just runs right by him. Brett Favre throws a perfect pass. That was maximum pass protection. They had 2 tight ends in. They kept them both in. They had one guy that they were going to take the shot to. It was going to be Brett Favre to Andre Rison.
54 yards from Favre to Rison. The extra point by Chris Jackie is good, and the Packers draw first blood.
Here's Andre Rison here. He's going to come up. Here's Otis Smith trying to cover. He's going to run a post right here. Watch what they do. They have both tight ends blocking. That kind of brings the safety up. So Otis Smith has no help to the inside. But see now, Andre Rison starts outside right there. He makes a move, boom, right there. And there's no one in the middle of the field because they kept 2 tight ends in. They went maximum protection. Brett Favre had time and threw a perfect strike to Andre Rison.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's the way to start your week. Now, maybe Todd and DePier is correcting me at WGBW that the anniversary of the Super Bowl was yesterday, not today.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
All right. Well, Todd, I stand corrected.
Also,
I apologize.
I do recommend.
But still, I mean, we were on the air yesterday.
That's true. It's the closest we could get.
The closest we could get.
I do recommend people go watch the video because there's nothing quite like watching a video of John Madden drawing everything on the screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to play that whole clip. Because 2 guys in Pat Summerall, and did you notice how understated Pat Summerall was in this call? Because he just lets the pictures do the talking, the video. And then, of course, you got the great John Madden, boom. those names, right? Andre, as Chris Berman on ESPN used to call him during NFL prime time. Andre Bad Moon Rison. And then Chris Jackie, the great kicker for the Packers at the time. Chris Jackie.
Right down the middle.
Right down the middle. Favre, of course, took off his helmet like they were not supposed to, but he was so excited. Had Mike Holmgren there on the sidelines. Boy, that was a memory for all time. Super Bowl 31. So technically, thank you, Todd. The anniversary was yesterday, not today. But what a memory. I remember watching that with the family, and we can only hope the Super Bowl in 2 weeks from now with the Chiefs and the Eagles is that great.
That was before I was born.
Thank you for making Todd feel even older. No, but I get it. But those were, and of course, the Packers hadn't won a Super Bowl since back in the days of Bart Starr. So that was really the return of the Packers to greatness. Was the culmination. The true return was that year. Reggie White, of course, had come over from the Philadelphia Eagles, and it never, the reason he came to Green Bay, he said, was that he believed in Mike Holmgren and Ron Wolf, the GM at the time, the coach at the time, and Brett Favre, and what they were doing there. Of course, he was a man of faith. He said that God had led him there and that he wanted to win a Super Bowl. And when they won the George Halas Trophy in Green Bay, he was skipping around with that NFC trophy, tears coming down his eyes. And then he, along with Favre, who was just starting his career, wins that Super Bowl in 97. It was something special. And now people your age, the Packers are always good and whatever. And it really started, it started a little before that, but that was kind of the kickoff, like, wow, the Pack is really back.
Yeah, and I definitely remember not totally grasping that when I was little. I think I was like 7. My dad took me to a Packers game, and I was just like, which number is Brett Favre again? I knew nothing about football. But I didn't understand that they weren't always great.
Yeah, no, they weren't. But, I lived through the Don Majkowski and the Tony Mandridge years. Anyway, thank you, Todd. Appreciate the correction. So 31 years ago, or 31 year, Super Bowl 31, the anniversary was yesterday. So I wanted to play a little John Madden and Pat Summerall for you. There is actual news of the day. Going to come back and talk about that over the weekend. Of course, things are coming fast and furious when it comes to, we're only in, by the way, 1 week into Trump 2.0. Lots to keep track of. I think that Hawaii Senator Democrat Brian Schatz said it best. We're going to come back and hear what he has to say. And other people on this program have talked about it. What's really important to watch here coming forward. Also, the election for the DNC, Democratic National Committee, the chairmanship is this weekend. The candidate from Minnesota getting a little salty, a little snarky. We'll hear what he has to say about our own Ben Winkler from Wisconsin. And also, Donald Trump's immigrant roundup. Is it really just a reality show? Your calls as well. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show for Monday in Civic Media.
Madison's real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
Winter blues? Time for a change? Yeah, the Aaron Weber Group gets it. And they can get you moving. Whether west to Oregon or east to Brooklyn, the Aaron Weber Group has you covered. Wait a second. I don't get this. Here in Dane County, we have Oregon south of Madison, and Brooklyn is south too. Whoever wrote this has their directions messed up. But don't you worry. The Aaron Weber Group has the compass and will find you your way home. The Aaron Weber Group, powered by Compass. Go to movetomadison.com.
Hey, honey, have you been to Sugar River Pizza in Sun Prairie yet?
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I know. I love the pizza.
Pizza is ridiculous. That crust.
Right, and they have
48 beers on tap and a great selection of wines.
And the atmosphere.
Not only is the restaurant gorgeous,
that room with the
giant windows that open, and they won a Best of Madison Gold Award this year.
I love Sugar River
Pizza on Cabela Drive in Sun Prairie.
You took the words right out of my
mouth.
Yep, sugarriverpizza.com.
Oh, so you have heard of it.
I'm Dan Schaefer. Let's recombobulate. On Monday, January 20th, Donald Trump returned to office, sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Right out of the gate, he took a number of actions on his top issue, immigration.
This week, you have
Perhaps
some
the
good
most troubling of these is one
Definitely.
aiming to end birthright
I'm obviously not
citizenship
gonna
in
say it.
America. An immigration attorney I talked to told me, we're going to sit through a lot of BS over the course
There's
of the
one
next
that-
weeks, months, and years, but
Ugh,
this
just
is the big
seeing
one.
the picture and reading
My
it for
take,
Wednesdays.
This action from the
Ugh.
Trump
Take a look at
administration
it.
is despicable, unconstitutional, and fundamentally anti-American. The day after the order was issued, Governor Tony Evers and Attorney General Josh Kaul joined a coalition of 20 states challenging.
Wherever it may lead, and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is 21 now past the hour of 12 noon on Monday, January 27th. Zommers on the board, always there to take your phone calls. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Busy week, first week. Had a lot of part of the reason I turned off my phone on Friday, just kind of put it down. Been hearing from a lot of friends, folks, and there's a lot of angst out there. A lot of people are feeling certain ways. And I think it's good to recognize that, right? And look, we're, like I said, week one. It isn't, and don't mistake my kind of casual attitude about this as, well, doesn't Todd get it? Does he understand? Is he not compassionate? No, I am. Part of it is that I have had the unique opportunity and privileged, quite frankly, to have that opportunity over the years to work in both federal and state government and politics. So that was why I was a little bit, looking back of it, maybe a little ginned up, to put it mildly, during the campaign. Because I had a pretty good feeling that what we're seeing in the first week is what we were going to get if the election went that way. And also a lot of people, I guess, just didn't believe that Project 2025 was real. Said, no. That heard a lot of people saying things like, well, that's just all talk. He's not really going to do a lot of that stuff. Well, okay. Turns out he was actually serious. And Project 2025 is real. And so when you see Trump doing a lot of things this past week, and over the weekend, nothing surprises me in any of this. And it wasn't even unexpected, quite frankly. But I think it's good to put this in context of what matters. We've talked about it before, the great article in Politico here a 3 weeks ago. United States Senator Brian Schatz, Democrat of Hawaii, who's talked before about what Democrats, how they should approach the new Trump era. I think he's spot on many things. And he was, again, recently here, was at the podium in the United States Senate in their press conference. They have kind of partisan press conferences, both sides. And as Tennessee Judge Weissman likes to say, I like to quote him, Senator Schatz put it down there where the chickens can get at it. Here's what Senator Schatz from Hawaii had to say about looking at what's important in the new Trump agenda.
I guess it wasn't about the price of eggs after all. Anyone who's been involved in planning a wedding understands that seating arrangements are important. They are significant. They are embedded with meaning. And where you put people on the inaugural stage is a strict definition of where you think they rank. And so it wasn't a trivial thing that the wealthiest people to ever walk this planet, who control our communications platforms, We're seated in front of the cabinet itself, which, by the way, has a few billionaires and 100 millionaires, but not as wealthy as the people in front, with proximity to power. And that's the point we have to underscore today, which is it was never about reducing the price you pay at the pump. It was never about reducing the price you pay for your mortgage or your rent or your insurance or your grocery bills. It was always about cutting Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, Social Security, public education, in order to pay for the largest tax cut in human history. That's what this is. They are ripping you off.
Democratic U.S. Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii. Love the analogy. Any of us who've been to or been a part of or been at a wedding, right? I mean, okay, parents are going to sit in the first row, siblings in the second row, aunts and uncles. Well, you know, there's the uncle we really don't like that. Well, put him back like in the fifth row next to you. Oh. It's a game, right? Well, this person will be really ticked off if we don't seat him closer to the head table.
Same thing in the reception.
Right? It does matter where people sit. And if it matters that much at a wedding, think how much it means at an inauguration. And Schatz put it down there where we can get at it, where we can understand it, right? Trump is surrounding himself with the people he really cares about the closest. And those people want something. It's transactional. And you and I are not anywhere near the head table. And by the way, when I say you and I, I'm including everybody. Doesn't matter who you voted for. I'm saying us as Wisconsin citizens. Well, unless you're part of the 1%, the Diane Hendrickses of the world. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Dick in Madison, you were first listening on WMDX. Dick, thanks for calling. What say you?
Can I say something about John Madden real quick?
Absolutely.
Well, you know, I was never a Dallas fan, but I think one of the funniest things I ever heard him say was it was real hot in Dallas. And remember Nate Newton, the big defensive or offensive lineman?
Sure.
It was like a tackle. And he was drawing his circles around his sweat lines. He says, now you know he's lathered up. When you see Nate Newton and the sweat lines up here, and he's going on and on and on. And it was just hilarious.
See, thank you for saying that, because he was one of my biggest inspirations as a broadcaster. And that's why I will never, ever live up to anything close to Madden. But he always picked out the things that real people would talk about. Look how sweaty that guy is, right? I mean, I love it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, to this weekend, excuse me. I see this thing on the news early this morning, and these people are just upset as heck from the administration. These guys that are in Chicago, and they want the jails opened up, and they want these really bad guys that are in jail here out of the country. Okay. But my question is to this group. They're saying it's all about keeping the streets in this country safe, getting these people out of here.
Mm.
Well, what about the January 6th domestic terrorists that are on the street more emboldened than they ever been?
Yeah, a great point, Dick. If you want to hang on through the break, we'll bring you back. I'm up against the clock. You raise a really great point. And we have a great cut coming up that talks about the setup for these so-called immigration raids. Not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
If Dick, you can ask him if he wants to stay through the break and explain it, or talk about it more, he can. So whatever he wants to do.
Mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
I'm Stephanie Hoff along with you on a Monday, and you're listening to the Midwest Farm Report. For the past few years, Wisconsin has been working on expanding
He had to
its
go, but
Mesonet,
all right, that's fine. That's
otherwise
cool.
known as WiscoNet. This is a growing network of weather and soil stations that track data in real time for public safety or farming, for example. UW-Madison professor Chris Kucharik is spearheading the expansion, hoping to get 80 stations installed by the end of the year, with at least one in every county. They have 58 installed so far, and he says the data has already been paying off.
from the general public, from the National Weather Service. There's some good examples where they've actually used that information in their forecasting and issuance of weather warnings. A couple examples were a year ago in February when we had those 2 tornadoes in southeast Wisconsin. They were studying the Wisconet Mesonet stations for current information. And then just recently, I think it was around the holidays when we were getting some freezing rain, they were looking at the soil temperature information from Wisconet to understand if that rain was going to freeze on contact or not with the ground.
UW-Madison professor Chris Kucharik, he encourages you to visit Wisconet online to check out the data in real time. You can find it at wisconet.wisc.edu. We'll take a look at commodity prices next.
Join the Midwest Farm Report team along with Wisconsin soybean and corn growers at the 2025 Corn Soy Expo on February 6th and 7th at the Kalahari Resort in the Wisconsin Dells. Learn from industry experts on disease updates, cover crops, DOT standards, weather patterns, and more. Comedian Greg Warren will bring humor to the closing of the event. Connect with fellow farmers and share ideas among the breakout session, and don't miss the popular beer and bowl session. For more information or to make plans to attend, visit cornsoyexpo.org.
If you milk with robots, you know that cow flow is everything. Cow Corner Consulting helps you maximize cow flow by working with your team to improve your barn workflows, your feed management, and your system settings. Visit cow-corner.co to learn how. Cow Corner is an independent consulting company and works with all brands of robots. They're ready to go to work for you. Sign up for the free e-newsletter or contact John Gerbitz at cow-corner.co.
Midday from Chicago, grain markets are pushing lower while the Class 3 milk contracts are seeing a lift. Cash corn is down 8 cents at 4.78 December new crop corn is down 6 1/4 at 4.54 3/4. Cash beans are trading 12 cents lower at 10.43 3/4, and November new crop beans are down 9 1/2 at 10.39 1/4. The February Class 3 milk contract is up 8 cents at 19.38 a hundredweight, and the March contract is trading 10 cents higher at 19.12. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Stephanie Hoff.
Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Bormans. Increasing clouds and warmer today, but it will be windy. A high near 42, but again, the wind. Southwest winds 15 to 20
Elliot
miles
watching
per
on
hour,
YouTube
gusting
says,
as
big
high
fan
as
of
40
Shats.
miles
He
per
gave my
hour.
brother's college
Partly
announcement,
cloudy
or
tonight,
sorry,
still
college
breezy
commencement
with
speech from
lows right
2017.
around
One of the best
20.
speeches
Right
I've
now,
ever seen.
it's 36.
Wow, thank you, Elliot. Appreciate that.
No more mold. No more
Interesting
damage.
info.
No more slipping and hurting.
And Elliot, you've seen
Ordinary
Obama.
bathroom
Where does that rank?
for only $99 per month. New shower, new door, new tub, new wall, new anti-slip technology. BCI Bath and Shower is made in America for the highest quality. First 50 callers save $1,500 on a never-clear glass treated door. BCI Bath and Shower. Interest-free financing options. 800-329-4115. 800-329-4115. 800-329-4115.
I'm planning our family vacation and need a pet sitter.
We use a house sitter from Hotel K Pet Sitting. You know, freebellyrubs.com.
Free belly rubs?
Yeah, they're local, dependable, and totally spoil our pets. When we get home,
Elliot forgot
our
about
house is
Obama.
just as it was when we left, and our dogs are happy. And the daily
I don't know how you
messages
could do
with
that,
pictures
but-
really gives us peace of mind while we're away. For house sitting, cat
Right,
sitting,
about 20
and dog
seconds.
walks,
Thank you.
It's Hotel K.
Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 34 now past the hour of 12 noon on Monday, January 27th. Mr. Aaron Zommers on the board. Todd behind the mic. Glad to have you along with us. Going through a couple of the headlines, what happened over the weekend, trying to digest inconsumable bites. Week one of Trump 2.0. And again, we heard from Hawaii Democratic U.S. Senator Brian Schatz saying, look, it's really about the money here. And think about when you have a wedding or you've been to a wedding. Where people are seated at the ceremony or at the reception matters. Look where Donald Trump put the trillionaires, the multi-billionaires that control media and tech. He put them in the first row at his inauguration in front of most of his cabinet members. And really, this is transactional. Trump is a very transactional individual. And it matters to all of us across Wisconsin, even people, I shouldn't say even, but both people who voted for Harris and Trump, or anybody else for that matter. It's about the money. What's he really doing here? It's not about eggs or gas. I mean, last time this week, by the way, both eggs and gas went up. I just want to make sure people understand that. Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor, put it well. He said Trump wants to extend his tax cuts for the rich individuals. It would add $4.6 trillion to the deficit. But he wants to go even further, cutting the corporate tax rate by 15%, or to 15%, pardon me. It's yet another absolutely shameless giveaway. Let's take a look at some of these things, okay? According to an analysis by CAPAF, it provides some rough estimates on who benefits and shows that Trump's plan to cut the corporate tax rate down to 15% would, I'm not going to go through all these, but a couple of highlights. It would give the largest 100 U.S. companies, Fortune 100 companies, a total estimated annual tax cut of $48 billion. They reported $1.1 trillion in profits in their last annual report. Also, if Trump gets his way, cuts it down to 15% corporate tax rate, it gives the 10 largest U.S. companies alone, including, get this, Meta, Zuckerberg, Front Row, Comcast, JP Morgan, Chase, a total estimated annual tax cut of $23 billion. Those folks reported a nice little profit combined, $520 billion in profits last year. Trump's proposed tax cut for the corporate rich would also give the 5 largest U.S. oil companies, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Marathon Petroleum, ConocoPhillips, Phillips 66, and Valero Energy, an annual total estimated tax cut of $2.5 billion. They reported an estimated $90 billion in profits. And the list goes on. Not exactly helping folks in Elroy or Peshtigo or Cable or Pewaukee. Just good to keep track of those things. Meanwhile, these so-called immigration raids, I shouldn't say so-called because they did actually do them, particularly in Chicago over the weekend, with ICE officials, rounded up large group of folks, put them on a military plane, and try to ship them back, allegedly, that they said that they were from Colombia. And a lot was made over this weekend because the Colombian president said not so fast. And so it was spun that the Colombian president wasn't going to allowing the U.S. to bring back allegedly Colombians back to Colombia. That's not the case. The president of Colombia said, look, we've accepted lots of flights under both Trump and Biden via the normal commercial aircraft. So what happens is, let's say you have 100, 150 folks. You lease a commercial jet that holds whatever, 200, and you put them on a plane that lands, and that's it. But the Trump folks, in a show of television, put them on a great big military aircraft. I know a little something about this because I've flown on some of these aircraft. The aircraft they put them on, at least the one that was shown on television, would hold hundreds of people if set up properly for that. Big transport aircraft. It was meant as a show of force and for the TV cameras. And the Colombian president said, no, we're not going to have big military aircraft landing in Colombia. And the Salvadoran president, Nayib Bukele, he starts He starts saying, well, we'll take him. We have some really nice prisons here. And then Trump said, I'm going to put 25% tariffs on Colombian goods, which means the price of coffee goes up. Another big export of Colombia, it turns out, roses. Might cost more to buy roses for your Valentine's sweetie. Well, anyway, this morning, things somehow got worked out, and the Colombian president said, okay, everything's fine. Colombia is an ally of the United States in the Western Hemisphere. Saber rattling. We have a cut here from CNN over the weekend talking more about this show of force and what's really going on here. But first, want to get back to the phone lines. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Matt, listening in Madison and WMDX. Matt, what say you?
Hey, Todd. I just wanted to talk about, well, first of all, Brett Favre and Holmgren. That was my first Super Bowl as a kid, but I moved to Wisconsin, so thanks for the memory.
Hey, absolutely. Great one.
But also, just wanted to talk about Trump's effect on our allies and what's happening worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that China's AI has now bested us. It's cheaper. It's less environmentally damaging. Doesn't take as much power. So they're beating us. They're making friends while we're making enemies under Trump. And I just sold my Tesla stock because Elon Musk has aggravated all of Europe because they don't like Nazis, just like I don't. So I invested instead in a Chinese EV maker who is beating Tesla already, and Europe is about to open their market to China and give Tesla the middle finger. This Trump administration is going to have such a negative effect on us that I don't know what's going to happen, and I hope it's not as terrible as I imagine, but it very well could be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate the call, Matt. Matt brings up an interesting point. I don't want to go too far down this road right now. I want to keep it on track. But these relations with China. And again, El Salvador is a place I've been to 39 times over 25 plus years. I know a little something about it. This new president, Nayib Bukele, not so new anymore, but now in his second term, which that's a whole other story. Not supposed to have one. They changed the Constitution to allow him to have a consecutive term. They built a brand new, I haven't been there yet, but a gorgeous national library. They're in the process of building a brand new national soccer stadium. Been taking a lot of gifts and help from China. The Chinese don't do anything without expecting something in return. And there's been an agreement off the coast of El Salvador to allow the Chinese government to essentially set up a military base. Because, the Chinese would like to be in the Western Hemisphere, closer to the U.S. And to Matt's point, they're now being very, very nice to people in Europe. And it's not in the best national security interest of the United States. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Mark in Prairie du Sac. Mark, always a pleasure. What say you?
Yeah, this whole thing of loading people into cargo planes and shipping them to, where they're going to get deposited. I'm using language other than, treating them like actual human beings. I mean, that I just can't forget the images that I saw, growing up of the Nazi trains, loading people up into cattle cars and just cargo containers and shipping them off to points where they were, we know what happened to them. I mean, we just had, just going through the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and that it is just the parallels are not exact, but the dehumanization is exact. I mean that we've had MAGA and Trump and his allies actually dehumanizing these people. I mean, 99.999% of the people that come here, legally or illegally, are law-abiding people when they come to this country. Mm-hmm. They're scooping up people that are picking our crops in California. They're going to cripple that industry out there. They're going to cripple the dairy industry here. And one of the other questions I had is, are they arresting any people that employed these people? Are they finding those people that were employing these people? Because they know darn well that they're employing people that aren't here, if they're here illegally, they darn well know it. They just kind of ignore it. Well, I wonder if those people are going to start ending up in jail. Like if you have to have enforcement like this, you got to start locking those people up as well. But that's not going to happen because that would include probably half of Trump's supporters because they probably have people that are undocumented working for them in various capacities. So I mean, it is just this dehumanization of other human beings is just.
I think you hit on it, Mark. The dehumanization. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it. There are ways that you handle folks, whether they're if they're accused of being undocumented. We still have laws in this country of how you treat people, whether they're American citizens who are being arrested or not. There's a human factor, decency, humanely. There was a story on CNN over the weekend. I want to get to this cut. Trump is transactional, as we said, but he also comes from the entertainment world. It's all a show to him, right? And we're going to get to why this matters in the state of Wisconsin specifically. But here was a CNN report digging down on their sources of what happened in Chicago over the weekend and why there was so many television videos of this. Here is the CNN report on the immigration raids in Chicago over the weekend.
Reporting here at CNN this morning is that many of these officials conducting these raids have been told to basically dress for the cameras, right? Yeah. So here's the reporting. Multiple federal agents assisting U.S. immigration officials with raids directed by the Trump administration have been told to ensure their clothing clearly depicts their respective agency in case they're filmed by members of the media, sources tell CNN. While it's common safety practice for agents conducting arrests to wear insignia clearly identifying themselves as law enforcement, even agents on the perimeter of operations conducted across the nation have been specifically instructed by their leadership to wear raid jackets to generate possible media attention, sources said. So how do you understand how this is different from what had previously been going on under the Biden administration?
Right. So, I mean, perhaps the clearest cut case as to, or the earliest example of kind of the playing to the camera aspect of all of this was when they utilized those military planes to try to send some of these migrants back to South America rather than just a regular civilian passenger sort of airline that are typically used. And so, if anything, it fits into this larger dynamic that Trump is certainly central to, which is straight out of central casting, looking for members of his cabinet that look good on TV, playing to the camera when it comes to his own experiences in reality television. The man knows how to operate. He knows how to operate within this media ecosystem, playing to the New York Post sort of headlines. And this is kind of the latest example of that.
CNN over the weekend reporting what's happening on these so-called, I thought I should quit saying that. They are, in fact, immigration raids. But a lot of this, to the point, there is reporting that people with inside ICE are saying they're being told to make sure this is a good show. And for those people, true conservatives out there, look at what it costs to have a C-5 or, I might not have the exact plane right, but these big military jets for show to fly back to these countries versus a smaller commercial aircraft on a lease. It's not fiscally conservative. It's putting a show up there. We have a great text we're going to get to in a minute about people in Wisconsin, how they should handle this. And also your phone calls as well. Do not go anywhere. Going to take your phone calls. We see you on the lines. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation.
Robin Port Edwards was talking about how a lot of undocumented people also work and, they do roofing or whatever. And so housing and homeowners insurance and all that is also going to skyrocket.
Right. Yeah, very well said.
Progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to slow it down.
I'm going to send you another one. We might get to this. This is actually one of the guys from the Trump administration where they admit to taking the only available legal way to do it away.
Injection used to treat
Fun.
GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Eye Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor
All right,
about
got it.
Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
You know Ignite Glass and Gifts 3 locations in Madison, but you can also shop IgniteGlassandGifts.com. You'll find grinders, lighters, collectibles, hand-blown glass water pipes, artistically designed jewelry, and plenty of other items delivered straight to your door or to family and friends. Madison's favorite for glass, gifts, and vape. Ignite Glass and Gifts. Monona Drive, Williamson Street, and O'Dana Road. Plus IgniteGlassandGifts.com.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Where are you at with dome stadiums?
Oh, love them. Snow games are awesome, but it's also a risk of injuries and everything.
Give me a dome anytime. I don't want to see elite athletes running on snow like it's me playing out there and tripping and slipping. I want to watch those guys run. I want the receivers to run and catch their passes. I want to see great athletes being great athletes.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. Weeknights from 6 till 8 on your local Civic.
Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on Civic Media's radio network. It is now 9 before the hour of 1 o'clock at hour number 2. Gonna have another What's Worse edition for you. Your chance to call in on issues of the day. Take a look also at the Democratic National Committee, or DNC chairmanship. Wisconsin's Ben Wickler running for the position. This guy up in Minnesota, Ken, my least favorite Martin. He's running for this, and he's getting a little sultry. A little salty. Going to hear from him in hour number 2 as well. More of your phone calls. Going to get to the phones in just a minute, but I want to play you talking about what's going on over the weekend last week in terms of immigration. And we have sources now. CNN has told us that ICE is being told, make sure you wear a lot of uniforms, even people that aren't on the front lines so the cameras can see you, instead of using the traditional and more affordable leased commercial jets. Trump is ordering big military aircraft for a show of force. And a lot of people say, well, look, the answer is people need to come here legally, use the system we have. Hey, you know what? Not going to get a big argument from me. I'm all for legal immigration, doing it the right way. But over the weekend on ABC's This Week with Martha Raddatz, Tom Homan, the new border czar by Trump, was asked, look, if people are going to come here legally, that's fine. But why is it then that President Trump canceled all the Custom and Border Patrol One appointments to do it legally?
All appointments through the CBP app have been canceled. That is a legal way to claim asylum and get in the country. So what should people do who are seeking asylum? How do you do it?
Go to the embassy, go to port of entry. Do it the legal way. You shouldn't come to this country and ask to get asylum, and the first thing you do is break our laws by entering illegally.
So
go to the embassy or port of entry. Literally, the U.S. government set up this app and said, use the app to make an appointment to go to the embassy or port of entry. I've been to the U.S. Embassy in El Salvador several times. It used to be you would go to get an appointment, you get there before the sun came up and wait hours in the sun. Now they don't accept that. In order to get an appointment to do it the legal way at a U.S. Embassy, you have to go online using an app and make an appointment. And Donald Trump has canceled all those appointments and is no longer using the app. You see how it's like a shell game at the carnival with these guys. Completely dishonest. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Sharky in Racine, listening on WRJN. Sharky, thanks for calling. What say you?
Thanks for the program, and you're doing an excellent job.
But I'll have to tell
Thank
you that I have hats off to Racine, because the Racine Democratic folks down there basically brought in John Nichols, and he talked about the 2050 at length for an hour and a half. The gymnasium of Racine High School, Case High School, was packed to the top of the rafters. I'm telling you, and it was an excellent display of information.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many other places in our state actually did that, but I hope there was. Every county should have done it, and well, here we are.
Yeah.
So, it was. I attended it, and I was shaken, and I was taken back, and I guess I was in a bad mood for about a week after that.
Yeah, I feel that.
So
I feel
heard
that.
about the details.
Hey, thanks, Sharky. Really appreciate giving us that reporting there from Racine area, and a shout out to, of course, our friend John Nichols. Always a great guy to listen to as well. 855-752-4842. Let's go to the phone line. CJ in Stoughton. CJ, what say you?
Well, thanks for taking my call, Todd. It's just amazing to me that you folks are shocked that Tom Homan, that President Trump is doing what he said he was going to do. And, we listened to CNN for years. I believe they stood in front of a burning building and said, this is a peaceful protest. Well, you know what? The reality is hitting home. And funny you talk about immigration, but you never put the word illegal in front of it. Underline illegal. Your party, the
CJ,
Democrats, pick which
all right.
laws they want to enforce.
Again, I don't belong to any party. I'm an independent. But CJ, as a law-abiding citizen, doesn't it make sense to you that if you want someone to follow the law and to do it legally, you have to give them a viable way to do so? So why has the Trump administration canceled any ability to make appointments at points of entry and the U.S. embassies via the CBP app? How are they supposed to follow the law if Trump takes that ability away?
Well, for a while, we got 11 or 15 or 30 million to go through and figure out who they are first before they allow one more in. So the mere fact, go to the back of the line.
So why don't they just announce and be honest about it and say we're not going to allow anybody to come into our country, period, until further notice? Why aren't they just honest about it then, rather than saying
they put a freeze on it?
No, but they're saying you have Holman here. You have Holman saying to ABC, do it the legal way, and Martha Raddatz points out the truth that the only legal way to make an appointment has been taken away. That's a completely dishonest way of doing it.
I wouldn't believe a thing. Martha, George Stephanopoulos, Martha Raddatz.
Well, you don't have to believe them. Try to log on to this. Let's try to log on to the CBP One app and make an appointment anywhere. You can't do it. But I appreciate the call, CJ. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Facts are a tricky thing. Come back with hour 2. What's worse? More of your phone calls and addressing that comment on the line about immigration and how it pertains to Wisconsinites. And a little fun along the way as well. Don't go anywhere. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show for Monday on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. Pete Schwaba.
On the next Nightlight, I welcome comedian and founder of Chip's Money Tips, Chip Chinnery, and filmmaker Nathan Deming, who is touring Wisconsin to promote his film February. Let's light it up.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. Weeknights from 6 till 8.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
when the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram. This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A Civic Media station.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. This nearly nanosecond-long tariff war yesterday seems to be resolved today, says ABC's Rachel Scott.
For hours, the two allies locked in a tense standoff after Colombia refused to accept 2 military deportation flights from the U.S. President Trump responding, vowing to impose 25% tariffs on all Colombian imports, which experts say would have devastated Colombia's economy and raised the price of everything from coffee to crude oil, bananas, and flowers for U.S. consumers just before Valentine's Day.
It's Holocaust Remembrance Day at a time of rising hate and anti-Semitism. The ceremony at the former Nazi death camp Auschwitz in Poland drew some world leaders and a dwindling number of survivors, all urging the world not to forget. Rain easing after Southern California's first significant storm of the season helped fire crews but caused ash, mud, and debris to flow across streets in wildfire-burned areas. This is ABC News.
Andrew in Maine, regarding your question on the text line, the answer is
complete Civic Media lineup at civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. The deadline to send in your taxes is months away, but today is actually an important date in that process. Lisa Hale reports.
April 15th is the individual deadline to file Wisconsin and federal income tax forms. However, that doesn't mean you must wait until April to get started. The individual income tax filing season begins today, Monday, January 27th. This year, the Wisconsin Department of Revenue has several options for filing, including Direct File. That's an online service that allows eligible taxpayers to file directly with the IRS. The service now integrates with WisTax, allowing taxpayers to easily file state taxes as well. Also new this year, more qualifying expenses and an increased maximum allowable credit amount for the Wisconsin Child and Dependent Care Credit. Tax filers are encouraged to visit the DOR's website's individuals page to find answers to common questions, forms and instructions, tax credit information, payment options, instructional videos, and other resources.
Meanwhile, it's getting harder for Wisconsinites to afford housing. According to the Wisconsin Association of Realtors, increasing home values, higher mortgage rates, and stagnant incomes have made it tougher for people to pay for their home. Median home prices rose almost 9% across Wisconsin last year. The average home price statewide is now $310,000. Meanwhile, here in Madison, the median home price has been about $430,000 for a while now. Inventory is still low, keeping demand high. According to Redfin, the Midwest is the most affordable region of the country, but now we also have the fastest growing prices. You can find more local stories on our website. Just head to WMDXradio.com. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX
Oh, can we
News.
record the teaser?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Ready when you are.
All right. Here's what we do. Here's what we do, everybody, usually after the show. I'll see if Todd could get it in one take. 3, 2, and 1. Hey, everybody, join us next time. It's Tuesday Tangents with our friend Luke Mathers. Find out what's grinding his gears and more. Join us.
We're good.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah, now they can cook.
I could really go for some of that 12-hour smoked pulled pork.
Ooh, and some pasta.
Mm.
Okay,
In the
now
old
I'm
days, we
hungry.
knew him
Sugar
as
River,
One
here we
Take
come.
Todd.
They have
says
that great
Jeff
kids
Harris.
menu, too.
We don't have any.
You may
pizza.
already read that. I don't know.
That's beside the point. The point is, I'm hungry. You're hungry.
Let's
What?
go.
Sorry.
And we should talk about having some.
Jeff Perry says, in the old days, we knew it was one take
Sun
Todd.
Prairie, Verona, New Glarus.
No, that was
The
Jeff
Maggie
Perry.
Dawn Show.
Mine was,
Seems
oh
everywhere in
God,
the
Todd's
state,
going to be in
housing has just
studio
gotten
B
so
forever because he
expensive.
can't
Our
get
current
anything
president
right.
ran on promises to help the middle class, and I'd like to know what he's going to do about the housing shortages. I went through the executive orders. I read through the speech transcript a couple of times. Nothing he really said or did in the first couple days has anything to do with helping the middle class.
About 30
The
seconds.
Maggie Dawn
Thank you.
Show.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with our outstanding producer and engineer, Mr. Aaron Zomer, is on the board. It is 6 past the hour of 1 o'clock. Welcome into hour number 2 of the big program. It is Monday, January 27th, 2025. It's a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Welcome in. Little clouds moving in right now into Madison here in downtown. Partly cloudy skies. Going to get warmer, Zomers, after last week. Pretty chilly, a little downright cold. Some above average temperatures coming in this week. So there you go.
You know, I'll take it over minus 33. It wasn't that here.
Right. Some places. And for goodness sakes, people, be smart when you go on the ice. I mean, some ice is like 9 inches thick right now. That's great. That's fine. There was some woman last week in Madison who, I mean, it's funny, but it's one of those things. It's funny, but it's not. There's a place we're on the isthmus here in Madison. There's a lake on each side, and on the smaller lake on Monona, there's like a place where clean water from the MGD plant. They have to use water to produce energy, and the clean water goes back into Lake Monona. Well, it's warmer, obviously, than the lake, and so that part of the outflow, or whatever you call it, it's kind of open water there. And what they do every year is they put orange cones and buoys up all around that area and signs that say, danger, thin ice, stay away. And they're there now. And some Yahoo, and there's video of this, by the way, because there are apartment buildings right next to it, and somebody in the apartment looked out and saw some woman walking on the other side of the buoys within like maybe a foot of the water. Was walking on the ice. Like, get off, get away.
Why would you do that?
And she's like, no, I'm fine. I just want to walk. And all of a sudden, into the water. And they kind of call the EMTs and the ambulance. And one of our great law enforcement officers, Madison Police, arrived first and took somebody by the lake there had a paddleboard, was still outside, and grabbed that and went out there and risked his own life to pull this woman out of the water. I mean, I don't know if she's not quite right in the head or what, but you get these people who are doing dumb things and putting our EMS, our firefighters, our law enforcement in danger. It's ridiculous. Know where you're going. If you're going to go on the ice, going on legit ice, or just stay off of it. I mean, what's the comedian? Here's your sign.
I don't remember who, but yeah.
I mean, holy smokes.
Use your noggin.
I mean, I'm joking, obviously, but there's a part of me that says, just leave her there. I mean, really. I mean, kind of deserves it, right? Anyway, that's not nice, but it's how I feel. Coming up this hour, a little what's worse for you. Your chance to call in. Also, on a more serious note, Wisconsin women's basketball coach under fire by one of her former players who says that her coach did not listen intently to her mental health and, in fact, intimidated her and outright abused her when she tried to seek help. Going to talk about that a little bit. But I wanted to finish up before we get into what's worse with the issue from last hour, talking a little bit about these immigration raids that Trump has started to do now in his first week, most notably in Chicago. And there are reports now, video, photos being reported that there was a presence in Waukesha, Wisconsin as well. And one caller thank you, by the way, Andrew Maiden said, Bill Engvall, the comedian that says, here's your sign. Yeah, here's your sign. One of our listeners asked a great question a little bit earlier. We'll find it here in a second, asking about what this means for Wisconsin. And I think it was earlier, Zomer. Sorry, I don't have it. There we go. Let's see. Well, we'll find it in a second. Basically, the question was, here it is. Todd, do you have encouraging words for advice for people who are fearful of having their illegal or legal family members deported? DJ in the Shaw.
Or in the Saw in Wausau.
The Saw, pardon, in the Saw. That's in Wausau. Can't mix up the Saw and the Shaw. And I think this is a great question. Unfortunately, it's a needed question. Because it's all fun and games for some people until it affects somebody you love. And if somebody, look, I have I'm blessed to have a lot of Latino people in my life as friends and family. It's been years and years ago, but I knew someone who came here legally and through no fault of their own became undocumented or quote unquote illegal while they were there and got caught up one of these roundups, got put in a deportation center. And it was very difficult to have communication. Finally, they were able to be released, got it straightened out. Took a long time. I can't imagine the pain of loved ones who are going through this right now. And again, I get it. I'm all for doing things the right way and doing it legally. But we're all humans, and there has to be a human component here. So to the caller, to the listener's question, I'm not an attorney and I can't give direct legal advice. But as someone who worked on immigration matters for a long time for a U.S. congressman here in Wisconsin, I can give you some basic advice. And that is know your rights. Even if you're not a citizen or your friend isn't a citizen, know your rights. And one of the great websites you can go to is for Centro Hispano here in Madison. I'm sure there are other resources across the state. The one here in Madison, the website is mecentro.org. Me spelled in the Spanish way, M-I. So M-I Centro, CENTRO.org. Mecentro.org. They actually have immigration lawyers there to put you in touch with or to give you basic advice. There's also some great forms there to know what your rights are, whether you're legal or not. Because everyone has rights here. People don't understand that. In the United States of America, everyone, regardless of whether you're documented or not, legal or unlegal, as some people like to say, illegal, everyone has rights. And you have to know those rights. So that's number one. Number two, make sure if you're not a documented person and have children, make sure that you have talked to perhaps a pro bono, and that's just a fancy way of saying a free lawyer. Find a free lawyer that can recommend it at Centro Hispano or other places to help you get the documentation to make sure there are legal ways to put someone who is a citizen as a guardian of your children so that your kids are taken care of. Have those things set up. And as much as it pains me to say it, because I've said it to people that I love, if you're a Latino person right now, I make sure I have my passport with me. If you are legal, a legal citizen. Because we don't know right now. And it's better to be able to prove you're a citizen right now. And who thought we'd have to say this in 2025 in the state of Wisconsin, that we're living in a time when certain people, fellow American citizens, may well be asked, show me your papers. Well, I didn't think he'd do that. He'll just go after the criminals. It's the lesser of two evils. I can't vote for Harris. Those are the things we heard during the campaign. Turns out he was being serious. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. As my former pastor, Sarah Cheney, is fond of saying and ended many of a service, hold fast to that which you know which is good, and rejoice in that which is ours. Our friends, our family, and our faith. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Jack in Merrimack, you're up next, my friend. Jack, about 2 minutes. What say you?
Okay, first of all, you actually covered this just a moment ago, but this is beginning to sound very much like you're probably too young to actually have seen these unless you watch Turner Classic Movies or something like that.
Sure.
But the old World War II flicks where the Nazis were in control of Western Europe, and these people would be walking down the street, and some guy would, one of the Nazis would look at them and say, "Show me your papers."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's what we're at. It's obscene. The second thing I want to say is a large number of these people that are quote unquote illegals legally entered this country.
Yes.
And as you also pointed out, they have tried to get their papers renewed. They can't do it because the INS has been defunded repeatedly, and the bipartisan immigration bill that passed the Senate under Biden that he would have signed would have given more funding to that situation. It's months to years before some of these people can legally renew their visas. But more importantly, perhaps, the fools that voted for Trump, and I'm sorry, I do not have patience for people like this, that voted for Trump believing that he would actually do something about inflation, the cost of milk and eggs and gas. They believe a man who has already in 4 years had over 30,000 documented lies. We have now the best government that money can buy. It is by, for, and run by the billionaires.
Yeah.
And
Jack,
that's where we're at. I think that's a quote from Mark Twain. I could
appreciate the call, Jack. Thank you so much. Always appreciate Jack's perspective. Look, I get it, and I can empathize with people who are very upset with people that voted for Trump. With all due respect, I would say it's not going to help us to understand one another if we call each other voters fools. I think the people were misled by things, and yes, there is a certain amount of personal responsibility, but it's our job to bring people together. Stay tuned. Sorry, I had another 10 seconds. My bad.
92.7 WMDX.
Fair enough.
Valentine's Day is almost here. Grab an Edible Arrangements delicious fruit bouquet with same-day delivery.
Obviously,
Call
I'll put the website in the description.
Or visit edible.com. Use promo code DANE20 for 20% off. Make this Valentine's Day unforgettable.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. The Equal Protection Clause embedded in the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment is now being used to dismantle the 1965 Voting Rights Act, opening the door to even more voter suppression. Why is its history important? The 14th Amendment passed in 1868 and granted citizenship to formerly enslaved African Americans. The Equal Protection Clause reads, "No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." Scholars agree that it was intended to stop states from discriminating against Black Americans. Yet, as the National Constitution Center points out, it was also used to justify the U.S. Supreme Court's Plessy versus Ferguson, allowing discriminatory, separate but equal schools, transportation, and accommodations in 1896. Another interpretation overturned that decision in Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. In 2023, it was used to eliminate race-based affirmative action for college admissions. U.S. Supreme Court conservatives, notably Justices Alito and Thomas, argue any consideration of race is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. How might their interpretation impact voting rights? More on that in our next report.
Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen
I
to
have,
podcasts.
Aaron, I can send you a fourth cut, and I can't read what I wrote next to it. What was the last one I sent you? Wherever it may lead, and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 21 now past the hour of 1 o'clock. We will get to some fun. What's worse here in a couple of minutes, but I don't want to discount the number of calls, texts we're getting in, because this is a very important issue. And I think this is unfortunately, but I'm glad it's tracking. It's a good example of when we hear about a national issue and then say, well, but how does it affect us? Because people like to talk big, right? Our elected officials. They like to talk big about getting the quote-unquote illegals. Mass deportations now. We did this show from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Signs everywhere. Mass deportations now. And what we were told by Trump and Republican leaders is that meant that the rapists and the murderers, we'll get rid of them. Well, sure. I mean, who's going to be against that? But there are a few folks like me and others who said, time out. What about the people that work on our dairy farms? What about the people that we share pews with in churches that are brown color and skin? Well, no, he doesn't mean those people. He doesn't mean them. But now we find out, actually, yes, he does. And so when it starts affecting people we know and love, I think Wisconsinites look at it a whole lot differently. Want to give you this website again. I'm not saying it's going to solve everybody's issue or anything, but it's a good starting point here in Dane County. And I'm sure there are others in Milwaukee and other parts of Wisconsin. Centro Hispano. The website again is micentro.org, spelled in Spanish. So me is M as in Mary, I, Centro, C as in cat, ENTRO.org. micentro.org. We have it up on the screen on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We also have it in our show notes as well. So it's a great first step resource to take care of our friends, our loved ones, our neighbors. As one of the callers pointed out, both people who are undocumented or illegal and U.S. citizens. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Troy. Listen in Mount Horeb. Troy, thanks for calling. What say you?
What about the due process for these people? I mean, there's no way they're getting a fair hearing with the amount of time that they're being picked up and loaded onto planes.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen? What's going to happen when we start finding out that they're picking up the wrong people? Because that's going to happen too.
I think
how are we going to get those people back?
I think it raises a great point. Again, we haven't even gotten to what was it, 17 inspectors general that were fired basically illegally because under U.S. code, the executive branch, the president, is supposed to give Congress 30 days advance notice of why they're firing these people. They didn't. Just did it.
You can't get to everything in a 2-hour show.
Right. But you make a great point, Troy. And again, we heard from people before the election. Well, the court system, the courts will be the third rail. The courts will stop Trump from going too far. We're 1 week in, haven't seen it yet. You make a great point. I mean, I'm not trying to be cavalier about this or just dismissive. I guess I'm trying to make the point that this is what we expected. I expected at least, and I don't think we're at the worst part yet. So all we could do is try to support and take care of each other and get good and accurate information out. It doesn't do a whole lot of good for me to come on here and yell and say, I'm part of the resistance. What does that do? I guess cathartic. But I appreciate the call. 855-752-4842. Ted, listening in Appleton. Ted, did you try out the new radio station? You called us last week. You said you're in that sweet spot between WGBW in Green Bay and ISS in Oshkosh, and you helped us learn we actually have a signal in Appleton. Ted, how does it work?
Well, I wanted to report back to you, Todd.
I appreciate it.
And I really wanted to call back and say that you were a dang liar, but it worked.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you to our engineering. See, that's what we have, great engineers. Look at this.
You blew my bubble, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, if you weren't with us last week, Ted is on the great grounds crew at the Appleton Airport. He keeps the flights going on time, and he was saying he couldn't get either Green Bay or Oshkosh. He was right in between the signals, and we learned together that we have a new signal in Appleton. Now I don't have it in front of me. What is it? What is it, Ted? 90 what?
96.5.
96.5 FM. We learned this together, and you've tried it.
And I don't know the call letters because
Well,
they don't give one.
Right. It's just, I think it's they call it like a rebroadcast or whatever of one of our other signals.
No.
Yeah. But that's
Okay.
fantastic.
But
I'm glad it works.
Going back to the deportation here, I text my representative, Shay Sortwell, and I asked him, I says, can you milk cows and pick vegetables? I never got a response back.
You didn't? I'm surprised.
And same thing with Ron Tussler. And Ron Tussler, the same thing, that crooked lawyer. It's like no response back. Like, seriously, dudes.
Oh, love it, Ted. Thanks for the call. Have a great day up there in Appleton. We appreciate everything you do. 855-752-4842. Let's go quickly down to Monroe, beautiful Greene County. Angie in Monroe, what say you?
All I know is I grew up in Yuma, Arizona, and right now is harvest time. And this is the food that we're going to be getting until the next batch grows. And I watch a lot of TikTok. I know people are like blah, 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 blah on TikTok. Well, apparently the truckers there's nothing to pick up. And I'm just saying that food's going to rot because there is nobody going to be picking the fields. They're showing examples of how hard it is, and you get paid by the bushel, not by the hour. That's just the way it is. They get paid the lowest income you can possibly imagine, and there's no white people, no black people, no other people that are going to be doing this. And you also have to have the training and the experience and the speed to do this, to load up those trucks.
Yep. Thanks,
That's
Angie.
Gonna rot.
I'm up against the clock, but thank you, Angie. I appreciate the call. Come back. We are going to turn a page, do some what's worse and more. Talk about, at the end of the show at least, what's happening in the race for Democratic National Chair. A little fun on the way. Don't go anywhere. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show in 7 Media.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. Local radio for you and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
For
92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. In the race to lead the Democratic National Committee, Wisconsin's Ben Wickler is one of the favorites. He's facing Ken Martin of Minnesota and former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley. Wickler has been touting his record as a successful fundraiser here in the Badger State, and now 7 governors have endorsed him, plus Governor Tony Evers here in Wisconsin. 4 of those governors are voting members themselves, including Laura Kelly of Kansas, Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, Andy Beshear of Kentucky, and Michelle Lujan Grisham of New Mexico. They've also each urged members in their states to vote for Wickler, which could give him a big boost. The election to be chair of the Democratic National Committee is on Saturday. Wickler has been chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party for 5 years. And DeForest was tapped to get Wisconsin's first Buc-ee's, a Texas chain of convenience stores as beloved there as our native Quick Trip is here. It was supposed to be along the interstate near County Highway I, but the plan hit a snag. Buc-ee's asked the village to share the cost of improvements to the roads surrounding where that new location would go. The stores are so popular, it's believed the current infrastructure couldn't handle the traffic. Now, the DeForest Village Board plans to ask state officials for help with that funding. Meanwhile, Buc-ee's staff had hoped to break ground in 2024 and open this year, but with the issue still up in the air, they haven't started the project yet. Meanwhile, they've announced a new Wisconsin location. They plan to add one in Oak Creek, also off the interstate. Here's Stuart J. Waddles.
The proposed 74,000 square foot convenience store and fueling station would be located on the southwest corner of I-94 and Elm Road. The project, featuring 120 gas pumps and EV charging stations, faces 2 public hearings before a potential March vote. It could open in early 2027 if approved.
So now it remains to be seen which city will have the first Buc-ee's in Wisconsin. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX News.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. Really good actors are supposed to be fearless. Leonardo DiCaprio is typically one of them. That was not the case, though, on the set of Django Unchained. During a recent interview with Vanity Fair, Jamie Foxx recalled DiCaprio, who played a ruthless slave owner, had trouble saying words that were racial slurs, even though he was in character. According to Fox, Samuel Jackson put DiCaprio at ease, saying, like only Samuel Jackson can, "You can say that, mother." DiCaprio got the point. If you've got $150 million bucks burning a hole in your pocket, consider purchasing Tom Brady's house. The amazing quarterback and mediocre commentator is selling his mansion in Miami. Don't worry, renovations are done, and they must have been doozies because he purchased the home in 2024 for 17 million smackers. Not many people pocket 133 mil on a sale. Anyone interested in pretending to be filthy rich and taking a tour? I'm in. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Bormans. Increasing clouds and warmer today, but it will be windy. A high near 42, but again, the wind. Southwest winds 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 40 miles per hour. Partly cloudy tonight, still breezy with lows right around 20. Right now, it's 38 degrees.
Still putting off
By
that
the way,
deep
did you see
clean,
DJ in
like
Wausau?
HS
DJ
Pristine
in the
Clean.
sauce
Take it off your to-do
box.
list.
Well,
With
what
over
did he say?
20 years of meticulous cleaning experience, they make your home
Oh yeah, I saw.
sparkle
Thank you,
without the
DJ.
hassle.
Appreciate
Call
it. Yeah, we'll be up in
932
Wausau sometime this year.
0000 today. Why
great.
wait?
When you're having computer problems, you need a company you trust to get things working again, quickly and affordably. Madison Computer Works has been doing that for business and residential customers for decades. Our computer care plans take away the hassle of being without your computer or needing to bring it in for repair. Starting at only $10 a month, our local and friendly techs provide remote help and can fix most problems in just minutes. Call 608-231-8000 and sign up today. Madison Computer Works, computers that work for you.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic
About
Media
30 seconds.
app.
Thank you.
Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or where.
You hear the sweet sounds of the Oregon in Yuma, Arizona. Not too far away from pitchers and catchers showing up for the Cactus League. Brewers baseball right around the corner. You can hear it again once again this year on select stations on the Civic Media Radio Network. Cannot wait for a little for baseball action. Speaking of baseball, by the way, we would be remiss if we did not send out a big shout out to Kelly Call and Sean Hanisch, the producer and director respectively of Just a Bit Outside, the story of the 1982 Milwaukee Brewers, that great documentary that came out last year. We were privileged to do our show for the world premiere. They've been on the show. And I went down and I ordered something for work, actually. I ordered a mic stand, yeah, for our remote kit. So it's not like in my face. So it's like one of those ones that's like a low profile one.
Right.
I think
looks
it's gonna,
better on camera. Yeah.
I think it's going to be much nicer. So anyway, I ordered one of those. I went down to my my building's package room, and there was a longer box with my name on it. I'm like, well, I didn't order something. And I took it up to the apartment, opened it up. There were two beautiful movie posters of the film Just a Bit Outside, the story of the 82 Brewers, one for me, one for Mr. Zommers, as thank you gifts from Kelly and Sean for helping us promote the film. And we want to say thank you. How nice is that?
Yes, thank you so much. It's very cool. Like, they're full-size movie posters.
Yes.
Definitely going to have to get a frame for that.
Oh, absolutely. So thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Sean. And they've said, both socially, on social medias and otherwise, that it is coming to DVD, the film, and streaming soon. And they posted, I think, on Twitter and Facebook this weekend and said, when you're just two guys and you're not Universal or Paramount, it's a little bit more complicated and takes a little bit more time. So we're going to have them back on when the film is available via DVD and streaming. But many thanks to Kelly Call and Sean Hanisch for their generosity and their kindness. It has been our honor and pleasure to be a little bit of help, hopefully, to the film, because it's really about telling a story that's uplifting and inspirational. And as it turned out, sadly, but also kind of cool, that it was Bob Uecker's last entertainment project before he passed a couple of weeks ago at age 90. He is in the film as well.
And also just thanks to them for telling that story, for putting together that great movie. As somebody who was not alive in 1982, it was cool to feel like I got to experience some of that magic.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have him back on the show soon, talking more about Just a Bit Outside, the story of the 1982 Brewers when it comes to DVD and streaming. We started the show talking a little bit about the football NFL playoffs. It's going to be Kansas City taking on Philadelphia in the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks in New Orleans. Now, there was two very different games yesterday. First, the Eagles blew out the Commanders, the Washington Commanders, 55-23.
Sheesh.
Wasn't even close. And then you had the tight game, the Chiefs and Taylor Swift taking down the Buffalo Bills 32-29. Came right down to the last couple of minutes of the game. So, time once again. Here we go. Let's play What's Worse.
This or that, this or that. Then, of course, the choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that. You can get with this
Time
or you
once
can
again
get with
to
that.
play
You can
a
get with
late
this,
edition of What's Worse. Usually we try to get it in the first half hour, but lots of great calls. I want to get to that. So no prize money involved, nothing to give away, but it is your opportunity to have your voice heard across the state of Wisconsin. So that was the setup there before we opened. I forgot to open the thing. That's what happened. And now we've opened the thing, so I can reiterate a couple of close games in the NFL. So the What's Worse today is, what's worse, your team losing a close game or your team getting blown out? What's worse, your team losing a close game or your team getting blown out? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. You can also text us on the Civic Media app. If you haven't done it, download it today. It's free, won't cost you a dime. Simply go to your Apple or Android device, open up the App Store, go to the search bar, type in Civic, C-I-V-I-C, Media. It'll take less than a minute. It's free. Download it, open it up. It's what Gail King at CBS calls a deal, and you can listen along to the first 11 stations every day, the largest privately owned radio network in the state of Wisconsin. And also, as it turns out, if you're watching on the stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, I am wearing one of our Civic Media shirts. If you like this shirt, go to civicmedia.us, civicmedia.us, and go to the merch section.
Yeah, it says store. It's store
Oh,
is the
now
word
it's
you're looking
store.
for.
Now
Yes.
it's store. All right, very good. They change things all the time. All right, go to the Civic Media store, and you can buy one of these lovely T-shirts. I don't get a commission on it, but you can have a new T-shirt. It'll be fantastic. All right, what's worse? Your team losing a close game or your team getting blown out? Somers, do you have feelings on this?
I feel like getting blown out is, well, getting
blown out.
Getting blown out. Having your team lose by an insurmountable margin, to clarify.
Yes.
That is worse.
Yes.
Because it's
I'd
just
have very different
demoralizing.
feelings otherwise, but go ahead.
It's just demoralizing.
It's demoralizing, yeah.
When you have a close game, it's also more fun to watch. No matter who wins, you're like, oh, that was a good game. And when one team just runs away with the whole thing, I feel like it doesn't always feel good for them either. Like, I know when I'm playing a board game and somebody wins by a ton, whether you're winning or losing, you're like, well, that was a game. And
Right.
I imagine they feel the same way in sports.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear anybody want to. Well, here's a Dave listening in New Berlin saying, my team losing a close game is worse because they could have won it if not for that one mistake. A blowout is easier to take. Yeah, I feel that, Dave. Again, the question is, what's worse? Your team losing a close game like the Bills lost to the Chiefs this weekend, 32-29, or your team getting blown out. The Eagles over the Commanders, 55-23. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. I'm kind of with Dave on this, I think, because when you when you have a team you're watching, you're committed to the thing, and you think, oh my gosh, we're gonna win. Oh my gosh, we're gonna win, and then at the last moment you lose. That's just crushing. Because Dave's right. You think back. I mean, no loss should ever come down to that one play, but you think, well, if not for that one play, we would have won. Where with a blowout, you're just like, well, that's not happening.
For me, yes, I agree. But, the thrilling highs and lows of sports, you got to have the close games that they hurt more. But just like the commissioner of baseball said, baseball is meant to break your heart.
You're right.
Sometimes you need that in order to appreciate the wins more.
Right. My sister weighing in on this, by the way. She says I'm worse than the boys in her class. Really? Anyway, I think you're right. Let's see. Also, Sarah in Green Bay says a close game is worse. Remember the NFC Championship game against the Seahawks? Oh, Sarah, that's called picking at the scab, reopening old wounds. Of course I do. When we were out there, we did the show in Seattle this year. We talked about that, right? One of the most crushing defeats ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Because the Packers should have won that, and then everything went sideways. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The Packers don't lose that. I'm convinced they win another Super Bowl that year. But I think you're right, Sarah. That was a great example of a close loss that was crushing. What's worse, your team losing a close game or your team getting blown out? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842.
Jeff Perry texted in on Facebook. I completely agree with him. He says, getting blown out is usually worse. At least a close game is more fun to watch. Unless Euchre was behind the mic, I would tend to turn off the game if it's a blowout.
And Perry's right, because usually during a blowout, that's when
Everyone leaves.
Everyone leaves, but when the Brewers were down by 8 runs in the 5th, that's when Euchre told some of his best stories.
Right.
Because at that point, that's all you got. Matt saying, in Middleton, saying losing a blowout is worse, as it's a wake-up call as to how bad you are. Well, that's true. Let's go to the phone lines, 855-752-4842. Ron in Milwaukee. Ron, what's worse, your team losing a close game or your team getting blown out?
Well, I'm going to try to make this question less sophomoric and more adult.
Right.
And I'll say that My answer depends on context entirely. So
All
if
right.
the Packers are having a crappy year, and they're 3-12, and they get blown out, I expect that. And anyway, the Packers probably figure, oh, well, we'll get a better draft choice out of it, and
Well,
this
true.
is about as well as we can do anyway. But if it's a championship season, like we've just talked about, and everybody thinks they're going to win or it's going to be a close one, and it is a close one, and they lose by 3 or by 1 or by some fluke near the end of the game, well, obviously that's worse, But if they get blown out in a good season, that's really bad. I mean, it might not affect the final standings, and that's happened as well. So context is really it.
I think you bring up a good point, Ron, but don't you think if your team gets blown out and you think they're good or you're in a good year, doesn't that, I mean, either one of two things. Either it just was, one of those weird things where it wasn't your day, everything just went wrong that could go wrong, or B, maybe your team isn't as good as you thought it was.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth in that, but the NFL has worked real hard to reach parity in the games to kind of prevent dynasties, and I don't think they've entirely succeeded. But the draft and but injuries are a big part of it, and there's a huge amount of emotion. And in the case of the Packers, for instance, you have a very youthful team that's very capable of kind of losing it in the middle of a game or the middle of a season.
Right. But they did. I mean, the Packers, to refresh my memory if I'm wrong or correct me, but I mean, the Packers didn't lose 55-23 to anybody this year.
No, but they lost a game like that a couple of times in the Bart Starr Lombardi era when they went on to win the NFL championship, world championship, or the Super Bowl, and that really was crushing. Detroit, 40-0 over the Packers, and the Packers are clearly the better team. What's going on here? It's like you're scratching your head. It's like that Max
McGee was out in the town. That's what was happening. He was coming into the hotel at 6 a.m. and they still won the Super Bowl. Appreciate the call, Ron. Thank you so very much. 855-752-4842. What's worse? Your team getting losing a close game or your team getting blown out? Jim, listening in Appleton, says, by the way, on 96.5 perhaps, our new signal at Appleton, 96.5 FM, says a true blowout is worse. What happened to the Washington Commanders was self-destruction, which is a whole different category. Well, they did. I mean, I think it was 4 turnovers in that game. Was 3 or 4. I think it was 4.
It was rough.
They played sloppily. I think the Commanders, I mean, I think that they just kind of, I don't want to say lucked out, but I think they're a year away from being a more legit contender. I mean, take nothing away from them, but a rookie quarterback, give them another season. I think they'll play better in that game should they reach it. Hopefully the Packers are there as well. Kimber, listening in Muscatine on WRCE, says, win or lose, I love it to go down to the wire in a game. Well, right? I mean, what little hair I have left keeps falling out. We've had a couple of Badger basketball games like this season. That Ohio State game, which I was at. I mean, that should not have been close. But yeah, I mean, it's always fun. Like I mean, obviously, or I should say obviously, in my opinion, unless you were an Eagles fan, you loved that first game yesterday. But just a fan of sports, seeing the Chiefs and Bills go right down in the last 2 minutes, that's a heck of a game. That makes it exciting to watch as a sports fan of anything, right? To see it
definitely. I will say I was disappointed in the result. Earlier, Andrew in Maine texted in, Aaron, would you be interested in watching the Super Bowl anytime that the Packers aren't there? To which I say, yes, I'm interested in watching anytime the Chiefs aren't there.
You're anti-Chiefs.
The commentators are it's just insane
I mean, I get it. I get
it.
it. But Nate Burleson said this in the post-game show. This is. I mean, it's like the Lakers at one point, or the Bulls. I mean,
exactly.
it's greatness. I would say that losing the close game is worse for me personally. We have a whole new season of baseball to look forward to pretty soon. Brewers baseball right around the corner. We'll come back and wrap things up after this on the Todd Allbaugh Show on Civic Media.
and great conversation. 92.7
Yesterday
WMDX.
in the Chiefs
Equability offers custom
game,
tailored clothing for those
it was a
with
whole lot
dexterity and
of,
mobility
wow, what a
challenges.
perfect
Plus,
pass.
first-time
You're like,
shoppers
well,
get
that wasn't a
10%
perfect
off.
pass.
Use code CIVIC10
It was
at
thrown in
checkout.
the right
Visit
place, but
equability.co.
it still could have been intercepted. Like when they're talking about Mahomes, they use words like perfect way too often.
Well, that's true, sure.
And like they'd be like, oh, that should have been caught. Whereas on another team, they'd be like, oh, a pass didn't quite make it. But for him, they'd be like, oh, they should have got that. And like they're so biased towards Mahomes.
It's me time at Chula Vista.
That looked pretty Mahomey to me, Jim.
Yourself, Wisconsin's most complete resort
We're getting somewhere here. The real thing is, it appears that Aaron Zomers is anti-Tony Romo. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah.
Who's from Wisconsin? He's a Burlington guy.
Classic golf, a relaxing spa, or you can go.
And I've been told by one of his former teachers, an authentically nice guy.
I'm sure he is. I just think he could cool his jets a little bit about Patrick Mahomes.
He's a quarterback.
Any way you like it, from pizza to Wisconsin's #1.
I'm not saying that the same thing has not been done about Packers
Right?
quarterbacks.
I mean, Brett Favre,
$10 million
Aaron
in
Rodgers.
Chula Vista. Everything you've been wanting, all right here on site. Check it out at chulavistaresort.com.
USA Today's Reader's Choice Awards named Chula Vista one of America's top 10 indoor water parks. Find out why at chulavistaresort.com.
The Dane County Humane Society is your local, independent, donor-supported animal shelter. Your contributions
Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Glad to have you along with us on a Monday where it's 9 before the hour of 2 o'clock. At the top of the hour, ABC or CBS News, depending upon which of the great Civic Media radio stations you're listening to across the state. And then a little weather, a little sports with the great Mike Clemens, speaking of sports earlier. And then at another edition of the Maggie Dawn Show today from 2 until 4, Maggie Dawn, and then 4 until 6, the Dom Salvia Show, 6 o'clock until 8, Pete Schwaba. Great show, Night Light there, and followed by Rick Smith Across America and our friend Robert Pilot with Native Roots Radio, all coming up today on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, we said we would get to this. Want to make sure we keep our word here before the end of the show. I have a tendency to do this sometimes, and Zomers is tasked with the absolutely just what's the word I'm looking for?
Insurmountable?
Yes, insurmountable job of keeping Todd on track sometimes. But by golly, we got to it here. So, and this is kind of a inside ballpark type of story, but it has consequences. The race for the DNC, Democratic National Committee chair, is this Saturday, and it has implications for Wisconsin because Wisconsin's Democratic Party chair, Ben Wickler, again, I'm not a member of any party, but for my money, Wickler has done perhaps the best job of the country of any state party. Remember, Wisconsin was, the closest of all of the swing states. Wisconsin was the closest in terms of Harris almost winning. And I think that's largely due to Ben Wickler's organization. So he's now running for national DNC chair. I think this would be great for the nation. I'm not so sure how great for Wisconsin, but great for the nation. And God love him. Look, I mean, people need to fly, and I think Greg Bach said that earlier on Jay Matnair and his show, Matnair on Air, that, look, you want people to be successful, right? And we want Ben to be successful and want him to take his talents to the country. Well, here now, he's got, apparently his biggest competition is this Yahoo from over in Minnesota. Who, I mean, as Tommy Thompson, former governor of Wisconsin, used to say, Minnesota brags about being the land of 10,000 lakes. Well, in Wisconsin, we got 15,000 lakes, and ours have got fish in them. So this guy, Ken, and I'm using a Chris Berman phrase here, Ken, I'm calling him Ken, my least favorite Martin. Ken Martin is the Minnesota Democratic chair. Now, look, Ben Wickler is a gentleman. He's a fighter, but he's a gentleman. He's been running on what he would bring to the national party. And this dude, Ken Martin, was on MSNBC and asked, well, hey, you're going around bragging that apparently it takes 250 delegate votes, I don't know, to win this thing. And he's saying openly he has 200 votes. So he's got this wrapped up, basically, and he throws a shot across the bow at Ben Wickler. Here he is, Ken, my least favorite Martin, on MSNBC.
Well, look, I've been overwhelmed by the support throughout this entire race, right? And we've rolled out all of our endorsements, at least the ones that want to be listed publicly online. My next closest competitor isn't even close at this point, to be honest with you. But that's neither here nor there. You know, my old boss, Paul Wellstone, used to say that.
My next closest competitor isn't even close?
That's Ben Wickler that he's talking about.
Who does this guy, Ken Martin, think he is? It's getting nasty. Here's what I'll tell you about votes in closed caucuses like this. 2006, Wisconsin State Senate. And for those who don't remember, now he's a U.S. Congressman, Scott Fitzgerald, was in the state Senate, and everybody thought he was going to be the next majority leader because his brother, Little Fitzgerald, I can't remember his first name, he was the assembly speaker. And the Wisconsin State Journal did a great big front page story with color photographs about how cool the history was going to be made. The brothers Fitzgerald were going to control the legislature. Little Fitzgerald was going to be the speaker of the assembly. I think it was Jeff. And Scott Fitzgerald, the older brother, was going to be the majority leader in the state Senate. And Scott Fitzgerald was going around telling everybody how he had this in the bag, how he had the votes. Because guess what? My old boss used to tell me this. Hey, guess what? People lie. So one of the senators, Mary Lozick, lied. She told Fitzgerald she was voting for him, but she also told my boss that she was voting for him. And when the votes came in, my former boss won the majority leadership by one vote. And people were apoplectic. And it ruined all the plans for the brothers Fitzgerald. Remember, the Brothers Maine used to have a jingle. The Brothers Maine in the land of the giants. It was
Here
going
we
to be
have the wreck of the brothers Fitzgerald.
Right. So just be careful about people bragging about wrapping up the votes before they're counted, especially in these inter-party elections. You never know what's going to happen. And by the way, this Ken Martin dude, a little left for me. Seems pretty far left. I'm not exactly sure that's the way you want to take the national party moving forward. It would seem to me a guy like Ben Wickler, much more of a centrist, who certainly has progressive values, respects that part of the party, but also respects and understands the more conservative part of Democrats, those in rural areas, who has a track record of winning. And he's just a heck of a nice guy, Ben Wickler. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Ken, my least favorite Martin from the state of Minnesota. Great show today. Appreciate everybody calling in. Mr. Zomer is doing yeoman's work on the board, according to our friend Chris Giese, who's watching.
Thanks, Chris.
Referring to keeping me in check. Stay tuned. Maggie Dawn is next. Luke Mathers will be here tomorrow. A little grinding of the gears and more. Whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. See you tomorrow.
Keep banging on your drum, and they will hear you.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Adios.